other books such as How to Become a Man, among other books. When we look at the title, Blossoms of the Savannah, I would like we look at two words here, blossoms and then savannah. When we talk of blossoms, we talk of flower, or rather, we talk of flowering. And when we talk about savannah, we talk of a particular woodland with green trees. So therefore, when we talk about blossoms of the savannah, we talk of flowers in a woodland of trees. And these flowers resemble two characters. One of them is called Taio, and the other one is Resian. So when we talk of savannah, we talk of the harsh environment. So we are talking of two girls here, and these are our flowers for today, Resian and Taio. So they are going to flourish, they are going to flower despite of the harsh environment. And therefore we come about with the title Blossoms of the Savannah. We are as well going to talk of we are going to talk of characters, and most of those characters I'm not going to mention them, but maybe I can mention a few characters that I think are important. One of the character is called Taio, I have mentioned her, and the other one is called Resian, I have mentioned her. Then we have another character called Mama or Jane Milanoi, and we have another character called Ole Kaelo, and we have another character called Oloi Sudori. So these are some of the characters we are going to mention among other minor characters. When we talk of Taio is a sister to Resian. Again, when we talk of Taio and Resian, they have their mother and father as well. And these are Mama Milanoi together with Ole Kaelo. Then I'm going to introduce another character here who is Oloi Sudori. Oloi Sudori is a character who is interested with Taio and Resian. So maybe we can look at a brief overview of the book. The book is talking about Taio and Resian. These two girls, at the onset of the book, they are living in a place called Nakuru. Again, there's something that happens. Ole Kaelo, who is the father to these two daughters, loses his job. And after losing his job, he decides to travel to his village. And his village is called Nasila. So he travels or relocates with the family from Nakuru that I mentioned to a village called Nasila. In this Nasila, we are having what we call a homecoming party. What is a homecoming party? A homecoming party is a party to welcome the father to Taio as well as the entire family. So what really happens at the end of the day is that the homecoming party, we have someone called Ole Musanka. So who is Ole Musanka? Ole Musanka is an old man in Nasila village and who belongs to a kind of a clan called Ilmolelian clan. And this old man is prepared to bless the family of Ole Kaelo. So what happens basically after the homecoming party, we find Ole Kaelo, or rather what we can call Kaelo's family, settles, and after now settling, things start happening. This character called Oloi Sudori makes a visit to see Ole Kaelo. Fortunate or unfortunately, what happens, he sees, he is able to see two daughters, Resian and Taio. And even though he came purposely to see Ole Kaelo, he eyes the character called Resian. And at the end of the day, he decides that he's going to marry that girl. Quite unfortunate, it doesn't happen. The girl gets rescued into a ranch belonging to a character called Emma Kererei. So basically, that is what the book is all about. Again, we are now going to look at some of these themes from this book, and we are going to start with the first theme, which is male chauvinism. And maybe we can start by asking ourselves, what is male chauvinism? What is male chauvinism? When we look at the word male and then chauvinism, we can maybe define what male chauvinism is. Male chauvinism refers to the feeling of superiority by men and their domineering attitude. The feeling of superiority, feeling of superiority, and the domineering character by who? By men. Actually, when we talk of male chauvinism, we are talking about a patriarchal kind of a society. So, who can be said to be male chauvinist in this book? We can start with the first character, and who is Ole Kaelo. We can start with Ole Kaelo. Why do we say that Ole Kaelo is a male chauvinist? Simply because he beats his wife to submission and coerces her to follow his decisions. Right from the onset we are getting this character called Mama Milanoi. Mama Milanoi cannot make any decision in the family. Every other decision circles around Ole Kaelo. We can see that one in so many instances. As well, when we talk of male chauvinism, this one is depicted by the character called Resian when he talks of Ilarincons. And you remember, there's a story that is told by the character called Joseph Pamwat. And Joseph Pamwat talks about these characters are called the Ilarincon. So Resian brings out the issue of male chauvinism through the characters called Ilarincon. And she says that our today's Ilarincon are even worse than these Ilarincon we talked about in a story within a story. Why? Because today's Ilarincon, and these are people like Ole Kaelo, people like Oloisudori, these are people who are crusaders of FGM. And therefore, she brings out or depicts the picture of our today's Ilarincon, who are the crusaders of FGM and who are in a mission of ensuring that they make women feel inferior. As well, we can see other characters who can be said to be male chauvinist. Another character whom we can talk of the same is the character called Olarincon. So when we talk of this character called Olarincon, Olarincon is a character who is a male chauvinist. Olarincon. Remember, this character from the beginning, we are told that he is a very calm guy, or we get a picture of a very calm guy. But what happens at the end of the day, so that we can say that Olarincon is a male chauvinist? what happens is that at one instance, Oloisudori wants to marry Resian. And at the end of the day, Olarinkoi comes out as a good character, and he decides he's going to rescue who? He's going to rescue Resian. So at the end of the day, with the plan of a pickup driver, they decide to take Resian, and at the end of the day, Olarinkoi is planning or hatching kind of a plan to marry this girl called Resian. So why should we say that Olarinkoi is a male chauvinist? Simply because when they are together, and after getting rescued, we say we get this character addressing Resian and tells Resian, you can never escape Resian. So Olarinkoi is telling Resian, you can never escape. You can never escape. Whether you scream your heart out or jump into the deep sea, you are mine. So, and at the end of the day, what happens? Olarinkoi rapes Resian. So we can see him as a character who can be said to be a male chauvinist. Can we look at another kind of a theme? So we're done with that. We can look at another kind of a theme. And we look now at sufferings. When we look at this book, we are finding women suffering a lot at the hands of men. But at the end of the day, we are going to look at women as their own enemies. So even as much as we talk about sufferings, we're going to talk about women as their own enemies. So we get into sufferings. Are there some aspects of sufferings we can mention? One, Tayo suffers the blunt of archaic, retrogressive Nasilian culture. She's forced against her will to undergo FGM. So what happens? We can pick a character such as Tayo. Tayo goes through sufferings. Why? At the end of the day, Tayo is fighting to rescue Resian. But there's a plan that is hatched out such that at the end of the day, Tayo undergoes what we call FGM. And therefore, we can see the girl suffering a lot going through FGM. So those are a few things that maybe we can mention about her. And we are told of Tayo that Tayo, she screamed and screamed, and nobody came to her rescue when she was undergoing what we call FGM. And therefore, that can be said to be an aspect of suffering. Can we as well see another aspect of suffering? Resian is physically assaulted by Olarinkoi until she passes out, after which he proceeds to rape her. We can look at this character called Resian. Resian undergoes what we call sufferings, and we are told that Resian undergoes sufferings at the hands of Olarinkoi. Remember, I said that Olarinkoi is a character who behaves and who depicts a good picture. But then at the end of the day, when he's planning to whisk Resian and protect her from getting married to this rich man, which this old man, in the process, he picks Resian as the wife. I want to remind you something. There was an older prophecy about Olarinkoi getting married or marrying Resian, but that one does not happen. So when we talk of sufferings, we can say that Resian undergo suffering because at the end of the day she is a victim of rape. She is raped by who? By Olarinkoi. And maybe we can now try to think Does that kind of a prophecy come to be fulfilled? Maybe we can talk about it later. So those are a few aspects of sufferings that the characters go through. We can look at another good theme called theme of religion and superstitions. Religion and superstitions. Are there some aspects of religion that we can see in the book? Maybe we can look at it. We can look at the first aspect of religion and superstition. When we are having this homecoming party, I talked about the homecoming party. I talked about the coming party. When we are having the homecoming party, we get a character called Ole Musanka. So this character called Ole Musanka has a pious kind of a feeling. And at the end of the day, Ole Musanka conducts the ceremony and calls the Kaelo family and then blesses them. An aspect of religion. And then at the end of the day, the same character called Ole Musanka calls out these two girls, that is Resian and Tayo, and tells them, Resian and Tayo, do not heed to the crusaders against FGM. And who does Ole Musanka refer to as a crusader against FGM? It is none other than a character called Emakerere. Emakerere is a crusader against FGM. And therefore, Ole Musanka blesses the family, the Kaelo family, and then calls out Taio and Resian and tells them, do not heed to Emakerere. And actually, Ole Musanka refers to Emakerere as a wasp. So we can see some aspect of religion in that case. We can have a look at something else or another aspect of religion and superstition. We look at this character called Yeyo Botor. We look at this character called Yeyo Botor. Yeyo Botor is a character we can Botor. So when we look at Yeyo Botor, remember, I want to remind you that Yeyo Botor is a wife to a character we called Simiren. And remember, Simiren is a brother to who? Simiren is a brother to Ole Kaelo. And we are told of Yeyo Botol. There is a conversation between Yeyo Botol, Mama Milanoi, and Resian. And Resian is saying that men have made us to be working, even in the evening. They are seated there doing absolutely nothing. We cook for them, we bring them food, and we do everything else. And what does Yeyo Botol say in regards to what Resian is talking about? Yeyo Botol says something here I would wish I would want us to get. Yeyo Botol, when he's having that kind of a conversation with Resian and Taio, tells the mother to Resian, that is Mama Milanoi or Jane Milanoi, that this girl called Resian has what we call all kuenyi. So when there's the conversation between Yeyo Botol and Resian, and we have Jane, Mama Milanoi, and Taio in the same conversation, and Resian is saying, I am opposed to men who are making us suffer, and we work for them, we cook for them, bring them. I am opposed to the whole issue of FGM. In regards to that, Yaya Botol tells Jane Milanoi that your daughter has Olkwenyi. What is Olkwenyi? Olkwenyi we referred it as a bad spirit, and therefore Yaya Botol says you would rather take Resian for the FGM. When we have the blood shed, we are going to eliminate this Olkwenyi. We are going to eliminate this bad spirit, and therefore that is some aspect of superstition or something. We can as well look at maybe some another theme, like women as their own enemies. Women as their own enemies. So we cannot exhaust all the aspects of religion and superstition. There are many. We look at women as their own enemies. Do we have some aspects of women as their own enemies? Yes, we have. We can look at a character such as Mama Milanoi. Mama Milanoi. We look at the character such as Mama Milanoi as we expound on the theme of women as their own enemies. Mama Milanoi betrays her daughter by giving her out to Enkamuratani. We can look at Mama Milanoi. Mama Milanoi. And we look at Resian. So when we say women as their own enemies, that theme of women as their own enemies, we look at this character called Mama Milanoi. Remember we said Mama Milanoi is married to Ole Kaelo. And at the end of the day, these two girls, we said they were living in a town called Nakuru. They were not exposed initially into FGM issues. And what happens when they relocate to Nasila, the mother hands them, or hands this girl called Taio, hands this girl called Taio to a character we called Enkamuratani. So Enkamuratani is the character who practices or who circumcises young girls. And we can say women are their own troubles. They are their own enemies simply because Mama Milanoi hands over her daughter Taio to Enkamuratani. Enkamuratani, we talked of Enkamuratani being the one who is the circumciser of these young girls. And therefore we can mention, or we can say that women are their own enemies. We can as well look at other instances such as Mama Milanoi keeping silent on the issue of marrying the girl called Resian. Remember, we talked of this girl called Resian as a girl who has an ambition to go to the university. And at the beginning of the book, the two girls are communicating and they are saying that we need to talk to our papai and tell our papai that we need to go to the university. But quite unfortunate, this girl called Resian, Mama Milanoi is aware that she's getting married to a very old man called Oloi Sudori. And therefore, she keeps silent on the whole thing, aware that Resian is very opposed to early marriages as well as FGM. And therefore, Mama Milanoi going silent on the issue of early marriage for her daughter can be said to an aspect of women being their own enemies. We can as well look at the issues of FGM. So we have, the entire book is talking about FGM. Where did this FGM thing come from? we are told very well that we have a character we called Joseph Pamwat. Joseph Pamwat. Joseph Pamwat. Joseph Pamwat. Joseph Pamwat. So we are looking at the theme of women as their own enemies. The two girls, Tayo and Resian, have been introduced by their father to a character called Joseph Pamwat. But quite unfortunate, one girl called Tayo looks at Joseph Pamwat as a potential boyfriend. And when the father realizes that, the father is Ole Kaelo, he tells Joseph Pamwat, your role into these girls is to teach them the traditional dances and all the traditions of the Ma community, simply because these are girls who have been born in town. And when we look at now women as their own enemies, we can look at FGM. Joseph Pamwat tells the two girls, because the two girls are asking and wondering, where did the FGM come from? And Joseph Pamwat tells them, FGM came from women themselves. I mean, how? This is how it came to be. So we are told of Joseph Pamwat telling them of some warriors who used to provoke women. And when women got provoked, we are told they held meetings and they were asking themselves, where does this burning desire emanate from? And we are told one kind of a woman said, I have now known where the burning desires comes from, and I have known the source of the burning desires. And then tells the other women, and the source of that burning desire, when we are provoked by men warriors, the source can be cut, and when the source is cut, the burning desires are normal. And they tried it and it worked. So when it worked, they started the FGM. So we can say FGM was started by women, and therefore women are their own enemies. We can as well look at Olarinkoi's mother. We can look at Olarinkoi's mother. Olarinkoi's mother is a mother who we can maybe get the theme of women as their own enemies from her. Olarinkoi's mother hatches a plan to circumcise or to have Resian circumcised, so that at the end of the day, the son, who is Olarinkoi, can marry her. So Olarinkoi's mother hatches a plan to have Resian being circumcised. Being a woman, therefore, we can say women are their own enemies. We cannot exhaust all the points, but we can get a few aspects. We can look at something else we call conflict. When we look at conflict, we have a few issues, maybe or a few parties that are conflicting. And maybe even as we continue with the issues of conflict and what have you, I would wish to remind the viewers that we are looking forward for your questions and your interactions on the social media. And at the end of the day, whoever makes a good social interactions, we are going to give them books. So keep sending your questions as we go on. So conflict. When we look at conflict, we can see there is the conflict between those who oppose FGM and those who are for the FGM. We look at the people who are opposing FGM and those who are for the FGM. And we look at Emma Kererei, and we look at this character called Oloisudori, or rather we can look at the character called Ole Musanka. We can also look at the character called Ole Kaelo, or others such as Ole Supeo. Makerere, we said, is a crusader against FGM. Against FGM. And therefore, we are getting her, we are told from the book that she has 500 girls she has rescued from FGM practices. And therefore, these characters, among them is Oloisudori, Ole Musanka, Ole Kaelo. They are against Makerere, and therefore we see some conflict emanating. And Ole Musanka, in the homecoming ceremonies, he decides to curse Makerere, and curses Makerere and tells Resian that Makerere is our enemy, and then makes some curses against her. When we look at Oloisudori also, when he comes for his wife, in quote, that is Resian, decides to hurl insults on Makerere, and therefore we can now say there is a conflict between the opposers of FGM and those who are for it. We can look at other kind of conflict that I have mentioned, that is between Makerere and Oloisudori. Another one is between Kaelo and Resian. Right from the word go, we are told that when this daughter was born, the father did not accept. The father, that is Oloisudori. Oloisudori, not Oloisudori, but Ole Kaelo. Ole Kaelo. Kaelo. So we are looking at the conflict between Ole Kaelo and Resian. We are told that when Resian was born, Ole Kaelo, who is the father, was expecting to have a boy, but unfortunately it was a girl. So from there was a conflict. The father did not like Resian. We are even told of an instance where Resian gets slapped twice. Why? Because Ole Kaelo is forcing Resian to get married to Oloisudori. So we can see there's a conflict between the two. We can talk of a conflict within Joseph Pamwat. I said Joseph Pamwat was a great friend of the character called Taio. And Taio took Joseph as a boyfriend. But unfortunately, the father said, because we belong to the same clan, you people cannot get married. So what happens? Joseph Pamwat as well took Taio as a girlfriend. There is this conflict within himself that the traditions have not allowed me to marry who? Taio. And therefore, yet he likes this girl, loves this girl, but unfortunately, there's nothing like marriage that can go through. That can only be a taboo. So we can see that kind of conflict. We are going to look at some other aspect of maybe of conflict as we wind up. We can have the conflict between Taio and Resian. We can have the conflict of a conflict between Taio and Resian. Are there some aspects of a conflict between the two girls? Yes, there is. We are told of Taio. Taio having a relationship with Joseph. Resian is against it and is saving Taio from a relationship that may not mature up and that might deter her dream of going to the university. And therefore, the two girls have a conflict over Joseph. Maybe that is an instance of conflict that we can mention without expounding much. We can now look at some aspects of greed. We have greed, and especially with the character called Oloisudori. We can see greed with Oloisudori. Oloisudori, we are told, he has 6 wives, yet want to snatch this girl and marry her, making her his own wife. We can see such as or call such as sexual greed. We can as well look at the same Oloisudori with the way he is greedy to exploit the character called Olekaelo. Initially, when the character called Oloisudori comes into Olekaelo's home, we are told he came to exploit Olekaelo. Fortunately or unfortunately, finds Resian and forgets about exploiting Olekaelo and now thinks about this girl, how I can marry her. Therefore, we can call such as a greed. And we also have other forms of greed, and especially with even Olekaelo. Olekaelo is willing, is so greedy for money and material things, and is willing to sacrifice his only daughter, not his only because he's Taio, but is willing to sacrifice one of the daughter called Resian so that he can acquire more and more wealth from this rich old man called Olekaelo. And we can see that theme of greed in this character called Olekaelo. As well, we can talk of other forms of greed in the same book, but now we can now look at something else called theme of love. Do we have some aspect of love in the book? Yes, we do. And where does it emanate from? We have love between Taio and Olekaelo. When we talk of Taio and Olekaelo, we talk of love between a father and a daughter. But at the onset of the book, we are told that Resian does not have a good relationship with the father. But Taio has a very good relationship with the father. And we are told in one instance that noticing this, Resian tells Taio, why don't you intervene? Go tell our father, tell our papai that we want to go to the university and we are interested in the same. Because Resian says that because she sees that Taio is very close to the father. And that is why Resian sends Taio to the father, because there is that love between the older daughter and the father. We as well can see another form of love between Taio and Joseph. I have mentioned Joseph as a boyfriend to Taio. There is some love that emanates from the same. Though Joseph initially is brought in to teach culture, to teach dances, and even the traditions of the Ma people, love ensues at the end of the day. And therefore we can say there is love between Joseph and Taio. As well, we can talk of the love between the two daughters, Resian and Taio. Can we look at Resian and Taio? The two daughters love each other so much. And at the end of the day, we are told that the two daughters, one Taio and the other one Resian, when Resian disappears with Oloisudori, there's a plan to disappear with Oloisudori, and then we have Olarinkoi coming in, Taio decides to go and look for her sister. And therefore we can see Taio troubled that my sister is not here. She has disappeared with the character called Olarinkoi. Where is she? At the end of the day, we can see Taio getting trapped into FGM in the process of looking for her sister. And we can see that love between Taio and Resian. At the end of the day, when the book comes to an end, we are told of the two daughters, Resian and Taio, coming together into Emakererei's ranch. You remember I talked of Emakererei, who has a ranch. And at the end of the day, the two are taken by a Makerere into a university of their choice. And then we can see the two have fought together. The two have been together. And then at the end of the day, we can say there is love between those characters. So having mentioned like 7 themes, having explicated the same, I can say we cannot exhaust all the themes. We have other themes of traditions, we have other themes of determination, and so on and so forth. And therefore, maybe I can now give out an assignment. So I can give out a question as well, as I check to see your questions. Before I give out the questions, this student called Grace from Overo says that is female assertiveness related as women to women as their own enemies? Is a question by Grace from Uvero, is asking, is female assertiveness related to women as their own enemies? Well, when we look at female assertiveness, maybe I can answer that question very fast. Female assertiveness. Female assertiveness. So female assertiveness can be seen in various characters, such as 1, Resian, 2, another one like Ola Rinkoi's mother, another one like in as well, okay, in so many characters. So when you're asking a question on whether it is related to women as their own enemies, that one can be related as their own enemies in one instance, because it has its own positive side. As well, it has its own negative side. So that one can as well be related into women as their own enemies. But you have to bring out instances of women as their own enemies so that I can give you marks on the same. So one is saying, I'm Mevin from, doesn't say the place, but is asking, teacher, does the theme of corruption excel in the book of Blossoms of the Savannah? Yes, yes, we can mention corruption, because we are told of the character called Oloisudori is getting his wealth from dubious activities. This is corruption, but it has not been given prominence in the book. But as well, it is a theme. But I would wish you make an explanation on the same, and giving a good explanation, I would give you marks for the same. Another one is asking, hey teacher, I'm Hilda Julius from Materials Center. Kindly give me an example of male chauvinism. That is a good question, Hilda. We talked about male chauvinism, and I mentioned the characters. That is something that you can always follow from YouTube and from Facebook. You can see me. You can see what I explained there. Maybe there's another question. Someone is, Melvin is asking another question. Teacher, I'm Melvin. The theme of determination is portrayed through the novel, where Resian is much determined to join university. That is very true, Melvin. I have said we cannot exhaust all the themes, and therefore, theme of determination is seen in the book, and especially when we talk of Resian and Tayo. You're very right. Then someone is asking, he's asking a question and is saying, the other questions are almost similar. Someone is asking, Almost similar. Nell is asking almost a similar question. And so another one is asking, hello teacher, I'm asking, how did Joseph Pamwat sacrifice for his love to Taio and state the character traits between them? Maybe on another question, because I can see so many questions on character traits. The next lesson we can talk of character traits of these characters. But I can say, yes, the character called Joseph Pamwat is sacrificing himself for his love for Taio, because we are told at the end of the book, we learned that Resian in the ranch learns that Joseph Pamwat loses his life in saving Taio, and therefore we can say he did sacrifice his life for Taio. Yeah. So another one is asking the same, a similar question that I have talked about. Is a question that I delved so much on. Is asking, hi teacher. Repeat the theme of male chauvinism. I said the theme of male chauvinism is seen in one character called Olekaelo, through the way he's treating women, all Resian and the mother. Is as well seen in Olarinkoi's relationship with the Resian, especially when he gets her as a wife and decides to rape her. Is as well seen in Oloisudori when he's addressing Resian, saying whether you scream your heart out or something, and all that is seen in those characters. So that is a similar question. Another one is asking is asking a similar why was it a taboo for Joseph to marry Taio? I said that it was a taboo because they belonged to the same tradition. And remember, we have a theme of tradition, and theme of tradition is given prominence in the entire book. There are traditions that dictate who should marry who. And therefore, if we had Taio and Joseph Pamwat marrying, we would have a brother and a sister. And therefore, that is the kind of hindrance that makes them not to get married. So someone is asking, this is Samuel from Nakuru is asking, hi teacher, is culture a part of religion and superstition? In one instance it is, in another one it's not, depending on how you explain your questions. So I have seen so many questions, and thank you so much for keeping in touch. Now pick the following questions in a minute's time. One question you can write. Explain four good aspects. Explain four good aspects of sufferings from the book Blossoms of the Savannah. Again, explain four good aspects of sufferings from the book Blossoms of the Savannah. That was the first question. The second question I'm giving out. Discuss four cases of culture conflict. Discuss four cases of culture conflict. These are some of the things I've mentioned. Discuss four cases of culture conflict in the novel Blossoms of the Savannah. And the last question that I have really expounded and explicated is identify and illustrate. And remember, I've said identify and illustrate. Illustrate. Straight. This is a question that comes in KCSE, and the students are unable to identify and illustrate. So we're saying identify and illustrate instances of male chauvinism in the novel. Identify and illustrate instances of male chauvinism in the novel. So that was the last question. Ensure you do those questions and ensure you keep in touch with the KUTV on every morning on our programs. And lastly, and not the least, I still make an appeal to parents. We are having Achievers books across the board, and you can always buy for your daughter, for your son, so that they can achieve. These are some of the books that we have always used when we are making notes as teachers. And we have always urged the parents to buy their daughters and sons these books, because we find them very resourceful. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate, and may God bless you. Thank you.